Welcome to Housebuild TV's inaugural Meet the Designer / Developer. Today we're joined by Diana Borland and James Sanderson of Sanderson Borland, who are also architects and developers, and we're delighted to have them on board today to talk through their experiences as designers and then also as developers, and what their background is and what has led them into design and also into development. So if you want to kick off there, I'll let one of you start. So
shall I start? Hi, thanks both for having us here. I'm Diana Borland, and this is my business partner, James Sanderson. We have a hybrid, two businesses. One is Sanderson Borland, which is the architectural company, and the other one is Harris and Hunt sister company, which is the development arm. So James and I worked for many years together before we decided to set up into business in the largest conservation practice company in the UK. We were working there for a number of years, and ourselves started thinking about doing developments on our own, focusing on the architecture side of things, which we started within Purcell. It soon came very much apparent that that wasn't sustainable within an architectural company, and we were doing a couple of projects that were starting to gain momentum, excitement and success, and it soon came clear that it was time to step out on our own. And how we decided to do that was in two businesses. We weren't sure whether it was the right way or wrong way. We went with our instinct, and fundamentally, as everyone will probably know, that development takes a long time to happen, and we still needed to put food on the table. So we set up the architectural company, where we were still bringing in commissions, and that is Sanderson Borland, as well as getting the development company going, Harris and Hunt.
very, very good. And what is the dynamic like? Because I also have a consultancy, and I know that the dynamic, my business partner is my sister, so it's a male-led consultancy. So it can be fraught with sibling tensions, but at the same time we work well. And how do you find working together, particularly as protagonists, let alone as work colleagues, to be protagonists? And mine and money is always a big jump.
I mean, from my point of view, I think we had some teething problems at first, because when we initially set up, prior to setting up, I suppose I was Diana's boss, really. So there was some dynamics there that we
line manager.
So quickly, when we went into business, I realized it had to be the other way around, and Diana had to be the boss. So so we had some teething problems initially, but we soon ironed those out, because I think we both think about things the same way, really, and we both have the same worldview on things. We're both you've got to trust one another, and there's a period we had to go through to get to a point where we totally trusted one another. And there are hard decisions that to be made, but it is just the two of us. So actually, and that, I suppose, in a way, the fact that there's two of us could cause problems, because if one of us doesn't want to do it and the other one does, then there's an obvious problem there, isn't there? But so far everything we've worked on together, we've been able to agree on through to completion.
I think we set up the businesses with the same long-term plan, and the journey along the way, there's obviously bumps along the road, but that was early on. We've both got different skill set, I would say, as well, which I think is very important for the businesses to run. And fundamentally, do you know what? We're friends,
which is great,
and we're respectful of each other publicly.
I think also, I would say one thing we've learned is that we've had to learn, because we're architects, so the architectural practice, we've been doing that for 40 years between us, or whatever it is. So we know how to do that. But the development business has been a steep learning curve for both of us.
That's true, James. So we've kind of started at the same level on the Harrison Hunt side of things, haven't we? You know, Sanderson Borland, yeah, sure, there's a bit more experience from your side, but fundamentally, you know, we want the Harrison Hunt brand to be the driving force with the Sanderson Borland studio backing that up.
Yeah.
So we've come in more at a level on that front.
Well, it's a very wise move because you need something to pay the bills while you do your prospecting. And
well, I think we're both frustrated in terms of the architectural profession, how fees have been cut, year on year, how difficult it is for architects to actually win business really and to get decent pay for it. So, and we found that we've been given so much value to projects for what is effectively a small fee. Yeah. We thought, well, why do that? Why don't we just be our own boss, really? So we go out and we find the sites and we develop, we get the planning consent through our architectural practice, which sustains us as an architectural practice. So, the development company pays the fees for that. We get paid on time. We get paid what we want to get paid. So we don't have to chase ourselves to pay ourselves, if you know what I mean.
And we're doing what we want to do. We're not answerable to another client's design. And I think fundamentally we want to show that we can do quality architecture in development. And it's not always about the bottom line. And if that's cut well, I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, your designs, your portfolio is excellent. Like you have a kind of wide range. I know we worked on a place in Balham, which was it's a modern contemporary apartment block with nearly a modern Art Deco kind of style, bringing back some kind of historical design, but in a modern contemporary way. It was a beautiful design, which was a number of apartments. And now you're working on a number of conservation projects, which again look massively exciting, as well as they'll be full of constraints. And I'm sure that maybe you'd want to talk through a number of your projects. And do you do mainly residential, a mix of residential, or is it commercial? But you have an extensive portfolio, and it looks great on pictures, and it seems to be really, really good high-end quality design, which is it's great to see in a small bespoke practice like yourselves, which is and it's congratulations on that. We'd like to talk through to a number of your projects, and listeners, we will be featuring their projects and the issues to have on site, and that's part of this whole series where Diana and James will talk through some of the issues to have on site and just impart their knowledge. And so you get to know firsthand, even as designers, people who are experts in their field also encounter issues on site. And it's not unbeknownst to professionals to not be able to flag everything that every eventuality, and every site is different. So it's if you'd like to talk through one or two of them, and then maybe even talk through some issues and how you got them resolved.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. That's really, really kind things you were saying there about our development. We were just saying the other day that we still feel very much in the embryonic stage of the business, but our team put out the other week that we're in our 6th year, and we still can't quite believe it, and we're still standing, given everything that's been going on in the world over the past, especially in the UK, over the past 5 years. Yeah. So it's been challenging. I think before we get into our projects, I think the most challenging thing is the things that are out with our control and not even in the projects. You can set up the business and look forward and things like, how can you even begin to imagine there's going to be a worldwide pandemic, Brexit, a Western war, and all of that. So it's been really tough. So I think if we're still standing now, it's looking good going forward.
Oh, congratulations! That's great to hear.
Thanks. In terms of projects,
I suppose we just talked about the Balham Road, which is our first project, and then I suppose the thing we moved into next,
that one behind us,
yeah,
artistic shot.
So that was an 8-unit scheme, I think 8 units. Yeah. So we moved on to a redundant listed building in Stockport, which is just South Manchester. And there was a big push really to get this damaged vicarage demolished. It's next to a Grade 1 listed church, and it's in a conservation area. The planners weren't going to let demolition take place, so we were able to work with English Heritage and the planners to do what's called an enabling development, so that allowed us to build new housing in the vicarage garden and convert the current vicarage into new apartments with an extension to raise enough income really to support the restoration of this listed damaged building. And it ended up being it's a 19-unit scheme in the end, which delivers enough income to allow us as developers to restore this damaged heritage asset for the town. And we got a lot of support and a lot of encouragement from the local planning authority. When we got our planning consent, they were very pleased. The building had been sort of like that for 20 years, and it just been getting worse and worse. And there was antisocial behaviour and all sorts of issues.
3 fires.
3 fires, yeah.
That was just the vicars.
That's right. Yeah. And it was next to a school as well, and the school wanted the site because they wanted it for basically extra playground area, but that was never going to happen because they would have to have demolished the listed building to get that. So we bought the site for £1 off the diocese because basically we're buying a liability of nearly £1 million to restore the building. So we bought it for £1. We've been on site. It's been still on site actually. It's nearing completion now. But we built 6 houses, which enabled us to put the shell and the core of the listed building back together. And then we've sold those 6 units. And now we're building the sort of extension to the vicarage, which is apartments. There's 13 apartments on site, which will be finished sort of the end of this month or early next month.
And within that, we've got the apartments of the existing vicarage, which gives a kind of traditional vernacular feel to an apartment. We've got the new apartments in the extension, and as well as duplexes. So there's a various typology and different types to sell off for families from 1 bedrooms right up to 2, 3 bedrooms.
So part of the challenge here for us is that we've gone from an 8-unit scheme, and we've sort of doubled that to a 19-unit scheme, and actually we're now on with a 37-unit scheme, so we've sort of doubled again, and we sort of think that's about the right size for us.
Yeah,
37.
I think we sort of said like our business model is around about probably from 4 to about 50 is where we sit. So we sort of like, we're not a mass house builder, but we're not a single person doing one or 2 houses. We are a company, and we sort of sit between like sole developers and the mass house builders. And it's quite a nice little niche market. It suits our company. It's sort of like the bespokeness of each development and the focus and the drive on design.
That's brilliant.
But also, just going back a wee bit, because we were working for Purcell, as Diana said, which is big conservation practice. We've got skills there. We've got skills on heritage assets and listed buildings, and some developers won't touch those buildings because they see them as risky. And it was always part of our thinking that actually those are the sort of buildings where we can add value, and you can buy them that little bit cheaper because people are, risk averse about them. And what we find is if you restore them properly and bring them back to a standard, they have an extra appeal because they have that listed asset, so the differential between what you buy it for and what you sell it for is actually, good for us as a business. So we would like to do more really of that type of, restoring heritage assets, particularly those that are at risk.
Yeah, and I think just going back to like the business of the first question of, where the skill sets lie. James is very much on the conservation side. He was the architect for Blackburn Cathedral for many years, surveyor to the fabric.
Yeah.
And I come from very contemporary interventions into existing buildings. So there's also that respect in the design front on James's conservation expertise with my contemporary design expertise, and how that merges together. And I think out of all of our projects, James might think differently, but I think the Vicarage project is the perfect blend, and it's the perfect project for us in terms of really interesting in terms of funding and bringing a site back to life from a ruinous state, contemporary architecture, as well as conserving and bringing the Vicarage back to life. So definitely, to your viewers out there, do check out St George's Vicarage. It's a real excitement, and probably my favourite project that we've done so far.
Yeah, it looks amazing, and
Thank you.
just the fact that you're definitely going to make a profit when you buy it at £1, but
Well, you'll be surprised.
You'll really, yeah, and
I
I think that really needs to be highlighted, jokes aside, that, you know, when you think that, you're just thinking quids in, but, you know, we would be happy to share like not like a fully open book appraisal, but like a summation of what all those costs were. And we've went into joint ventures with other partners to try and get this, because main funding streams wouldn't fund a project like this because it's so expensive. So when you look at the bottom line, you know, that's the reason why no developers would take it on.
Yeah, no, like I'm fully familiar with that. Like,
Yeah.
No,
It's really interesting.
I specialize in fire safety, so I look at buildings where there's fire safety issues with you know, people would find that it's very hard to upgrade. And so that, to me, when I do my projects, that kind of is meat and drink to me, whereas conservation is meat and drink to you, and like you're very comfortable within that sphere, and to have that knowledge as both designers and developers means that you're really comfortable going into a project. And like, it's what really kills projects are the unknowns. If there's known unknowns, then you can get comfortable with it, and with your expertise, that's super. But there is obviously constraints like the cost of finance, particularly with interest rates increasing, trying to get finance, trying to actually get a bond, get like then warranties, then also then like your on-site implications with regards to like how do these structures comply with Part A, Part B, Part M, particularly when you have a listed building. Like Part M may not be the same constraints, but then also you have the conservation of energy and Part L compliance, and how we did, like, have you got these up to an A-rated EPC, or like did you have to get it to an A-rated EPC, or like, and what kind of constraint could you just list a few of those small constraints that you had, which people might think, oh, they've done a great job in St George's Vicarage, which you have, but the thing is, to get it to that level, you need knowledge, but there's an awful lot of work, hard effort, and design that goes into saying, how are we going to protect this building, build the structure back again, probably underpin it, provide proper foundations, provide proper fire separation, make it watertight, vapor membranes, and make it airtight, and then allow the building to breathe, especially as an old listed building. So if you could talk maybe through some of the issues that you found on site that really, you know, the bigger issues rather than, you know, the smaller ones, just say like maybe one or two that you encountered, because this is not a typical building for people to try and actually go back about renovating. That's why so many people are scared of these buildings, and that's why it's priced at what it is, because you're taking on, before you even start, you're taking on a huge cost, and that has to be commended in vision and foresight in being able to do that.
Yeah, well, we took on £1 million issue. That's fundamental.
Which probably cost 1.2 in the end.
It was 1.2. Yeah.
I mean,
it started out. That's the exact thing. It started out.
I mean, I suppose the first issue is we had a damaged structure there. So, and as Diana said, it had 3 fires, two or three fires, and because of that, it had lost its roof. So because it had lost its roof, there was a lot of water damage. So there was lots of dry rot in the timbers. And it's a traditional building, so although it's a brick core, which is quite strong, that brick core relies on timber floors, and it relies on a timber roof to restrain it and to hold it together. And we had to take all that out. So to take all that out from above with a crane, we had to prop the building. So all the scaffolding had to be designed to be structural scaffolding to support the masonry, while we took out this damaged, fabric. So the first thing is we took that out, and then we allowed the building to dry out for a bit, and then we put the roof. So the roof goes back on, but that's all brand new timbers. And then we put a new structural frame in it, which is a combination of steel and timber, working with the structural engineers. And that's just to get the shell right. So that's just to, start to allow the building to dry out, stop the water getting back in, to make sure it's, like you say, there was some underpinning that needed to be done. We had to take chimneys down and rebuild them to secure them back into the roof spaces. All the windows were rotten, all the rainwater goods were rotten, so all that's been renewed.
And everything has to go in for like. So sash and case windows have to go back in as timber sash and case window.
And again, that's a huge cost. You can't take off the shelf windows. So everything's an added cost, and all the rainwater gutters, everything, the brickwork, the pointing, the detailed features that you would have on the external facade, which you wouldn't have on normal buildings. So people don't think that, people don't factor that in. Oh, they've done a great job, it's amazing, but there's costs in all of that. And
exactly right.
And for whatever reason, that it was a clay roof, a clay tile roof, and that had been stolen. So there was a few tiles we could go on, but basically we had to go and reclaim materials from other sites to match. And same with the brickwork, where the council actually had done a lot of damage to the building because they wanted to secure the building for security reasons. So when they'd taken these beautiful timber windows out, they'd block them up with concrete breeze blocks, and there'd been elements of brickwork that had collapsed, and again they just filled it in with breeze block. So we were short of existing building materials that we had to scour the land for. Once we got the structure right, that was one thing, but then we had to insert what is a new contemporary 5 apartments inside this building,
which was once just one building.
And one of the technical issues there is about breathability, because you just mentioned that, Ryan. And it's our main contractor wanted to basically just put gypsum wall plaster on the walls and batten it out with plasterboard, etc., and insulate it on the interior. So we had to do quite a lot of research and find a sophisticated insulation that allows the wall still to breathe and to dry out naturally, although it's got modern internal finishes. So there's been challenges, hasn't there, with the main contractor through that
process.
They build a certain way and they know what they do, and having to,
with all that comes skill set as well. So it's okay talking about it, but it's about finding the skill set locally to be able to do that as well.
And Camille, that material that you use, then, was there any particular material did you use? Kind of, I don't know, what was the material that you used as the insulating material?
Let me just check with a colleague. I think it's called aerogel, isn't it? Aerogel, the insulation at the vicarage.
Matthew.
What's the insulation at the vicarage called?
Aerogel.
Space
therm.
Space therm.
Mm-hmm.
Space therm. And did you have a vapor membrane between the wall and that, or
no?
Like, how do you do, just to impart some knowledge to people out there who may be doing a renovation in a grade 1 or 2 listed building in the UK? Just this is a small bit of information to impart to them. This was a product that you use and it's been successful in its use.
Yeah, it's an expensive product. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
It comes from the aero industry,
Okay.
and essentially it allows moisture to penetrate through it, but maintain insulation values. So it's all about the dew point. It's getting a bit technical, but when we've got a solid external wall and you insulate it on the inside and then plasterboard it, you've got to allow water vapor in and out of the building.
Yeah.
And you don't want the dew point to be in the wall, because if you get the dew point in the wall, essentially that's going to create moisture and condensation condenses in the wall, and it will damage the wall, or it will damage the timbers that the aerogel is basically supported on.
Yeah.
Mold inside the plastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you get like the battens would end up being, they'd end up getting damaged.
I mean, the worst thing you can do with a building like that is batten it out, or what they call in our industry is dab. Do you know what I mean by dab? So you just dab cement on the back of the plasterboard and put it on the wall, and then you paint it, and hope there's no problems. But of course, all that's doing is creating problems in the wall, in what was, if you think about the external wall previously, it's quite a very sophisticated structure that previously allowed moisture in and out of that building without having to have a cavity and without causing any damp issues. And what you don't want to do is seal all that inside the building and cause a problem at a later date. And then your skirting boards get dry rot in 3 months' time because the moisture can't get out of the building. So it's understanding the existing technologies and then making sure that you allow that still to happen.
Yeah, like what James is saying there is, when you have vicarages which were generally large open spaces which had no heating in them, so you didn't have much of a cold bridge coming in and out. So once you introduce warmth inside and you have a cold outside, that means heat carries through and water carries through. And if that cannot breathe, it means that the water will build up somewhere, and generally it's on the inside, and that'll affect the fabric of the building. So, and it's like vicarages were never designed to have mechanical heat recovery or heat pumps or be very warm inside. And introducing these modern technologies does affect the building fabric. In regards to Part L, Part B first, my area, because the floors were gone, you were probably able to easily enough meet the requirements for Part B, so that was probably not a massive issue. But for Part L, did you have heat pumps, or did you have solar PV? Probably not on the roof, but
no.
What about it?
Yeah, well, there's another challenge there, and well brought up. We were looking at putting PVs on the roof, but obviously it's in a conservation area, so that was an outright no at planning with the conservation officer. So that's another challenge that we had to take away from the table.
What we found on this one, and it's different with different authorities, but sometimes planning trumps building control, and sometimes it's the other way around. So because this was an existing building next to a Grade 1 listed church and in a conservation area, basically the planners trumped. So if I don't think I'm fairly certain, but I don't think it comes up to modern Part L. If we were building a new building, that would be a higher standard in Part L than this is, because essentially the planning authority said, no, you can't do it. It has to be true to its, self.
Well, I'm sure it's still plenty warm. That's the thing. And
although the windows are replicas of the originals, they are double glazed units. And so we were able to find a very slim double glazed units, which meant we could keep the glazing bars thin, etc. And there's a lot more insulation in the roof and the floors and the walls than there was before. So it's part way towards a modern building, but as I say, it's the planning authority that stopped us doing a lot of things.
But you know what? With those buildings, if you were to make it fully up to current standards, you take away from the character, and that's the key thing and a selling point, which is not just alone as architects but as developers. If you affect the character and the features of the building, I think you take away from the whole look and feel and aesthetic, and I just think it's not as good a selling point. And essentially, the planners were right, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think going back with just what you're touching on, back to the development again, is that we are providing 5 apartments in the existing vicarage. So whoever's buying appreciates the existing vicarage and living in that kind of setting, whilst are enabling development on the back, which is completely contemporary, that meets all the parts and all the sections that's there as well. So we've got a nice blend and mix of development.
That's great.
It's a choice for the consumer.
Well,
Very quickly, can I ask, do you struggle to find skilled workers when you're doing all this conservation work? Just like currently in the UK and Ireland, they're saying there's a shortage in the skilled conservation construction workers. Is that an issue?
Well, they are difficult to find, and what's happened, I think, probably over the last 10 to 20 years is there was some quite large sort of conservation practices, and they've seemed to have split up into quite small conservation practices. So you used to be able to go to conservation practice and they could do the lead work, the masonry, the joinery. And we find now, well, I find that they've all separated. So you have to go to the mason separately, and you have to go to the roofer separately, and the plumber separately.
have you asked why that's the case? Is it just the business?
Yeah, I think
model, it's a lot to take on, isn't it?
I think some of those large conservation projects that they used to have, they've sort of got more complicated because of Part L and all these things. And I think some of the main contractors who don't have those skills tend to get that work now, and then they employ the sort of specialists as almost like subcontractors. That seems to be, but because of our, we were both at Purcell for over 10 years. So we did build up a network of, connections and knowledge. And so we are quite able to go out and find those skills. One of the challenges though, is that because on a project like this, we had a main contractor who had no real sort of conservation skills. And we had to sort of bring them along, with our knowledge and putting them together with our subcontractors that we know, and then to get them to work together,
which has been challenging.
Yeah, it's been challenging, but they enjoy it. I often find main contractors, they love that because they don't get to do that very often, and actually when they see a real craftsman on site doing something, I think gives everybody a lift, really. Because I suppose there's so much construction out there which is so mundane and boring and laying bricks every day, that when they see a bit of craft or something with some skill, I think everybody gets excited about that. So, and
it helps to bring on their trainees as well for like all government programs for bringing in younger trainees into the crafts and the skills and the trades. So it's been a good learning curve for our contractor and their team as well.
The big thing is there's in the construction industry, there's a massive shortfall in apprentices. And now with the climate action plan in the UK, there's 15 million homes that have to be retrofitted. Like they're looking at what we've done in Ireland with a one-stop shop. We 500,000. Our houses that we have to do before 2030 is 15 million in the UK. We already have a construction shortage supply of workers, and we're not enough trained, skilled workers. So how we're going to meet the government's requirements for action plan is beyond me. And similarly in the UK, like 15 homes to be retrofitted by 2030. It's 2023 now. I'd say in the UK, if 500,000 homes have been done by now, in Ireland, I know there's only about 30 or 40,000. How we're going to get from the 30 or 40,000 to 500,000 in that period, I can't see it happening.
No.
There needs to be a massive drive in school for apprentices, and that's like, it's college is not the be all and end all. You'll have as good and probably a more fruitful livelihood and be as wealthy being a carpenter, a plumber, a mason. And if you're, what I've noticed when we had the massive recession here was that anyone who was a good tradesperson was always busy, even in the bad times, and they've always been very, very successful. So, but the thing is, there's a big disparity between the amount of people working in construction and what we need, and that's only going to get worse in the coming years when we need to retrofit. We need to meet our climate action plans. We need to upgrade these homes. So, we could be talking about this for years, and I'm sure we will be.
No, it needs to start from school. It needs to start from governmental level, and at school to bring the trades through.
It's a top-down approach, and it has to be taken top down. But anyway, that's super, guys. Thanks a
Nice
million.
chat. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely to see you again.
Well, I think on our next talk, we'd love to see some. I'm sure we're going to see some images of it, but even the videos you could share with us. We put it up on all our social media and share it on our next live one. And we look forward to talking to you more over the next few months and you sharing with us your experiences on all your future projects. And we look forward to sharing it with all our viewers and all our tribe of Housebuild supporters. So that's super.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Oh no, thank you for the time. It's great to be part of Housebuild and let us congratulate on what you guys have achieved as well. It's really exciting. We're working and using your app here as well. So onwards and upwards. And I'll get James to make sure to call you Owen instead of your surname Ryan as well.
Sorry, Owen. That was always going to happen, wasn't
That was
it?
always going to happen. My mum said never trust a man with two first names.